pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next up is public comments and announcements. Is there any comments from the City Council Board?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence. A classmate of mine, now the Catholic priest, Father Amador, suffered a stroke this morning. He built a bad one. And we just have just 15, 30 seconds, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments from the board? Council? All right, hearing none, is there any public comments for Shoreline Task Force board members? All right, hearing none of that, is there any public comments from the audience? All right, we'll close.
I guess, are you talking about bans today?
The discussion today is a discussion regarding vehicle and trailer parking along Gulf Boulevard.
I had read someplace that it said bans, so I don't know I showed up because I wasn't sure what was initiating this talk about the vehicles.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll move on to the regular agenda, but then we'll give an opportunity for those in the audience to speak after there's been some discussion amongst the two boards, if that works out for everybody. Okay. Now I'll close public comments and we'll move to item number 4, which is regular agenda. We'll go to 4.1, which is discussion regarding vehicle and trailer parking along Gulf Boulevard. This was brought up by the Shoreline Task Force, so we'll let the Shoreline Task Force start this conversation up so that we can have a good, productive workshop.
Well, hopefully it's good and productive. Okay, so this is brought up just over the last year and a half, so noticing more and more especially boat trailers and trucks being parked along our public beach access parking spots along Gulf Boulevard. Some vans, some stuff like that as well, RVs for multiple days. And this was brought up in January to try to address this issue and come up with some sort of language for an ordinance, which we did. We've come up with our help of Ed Zaganowicz, our city attorney, came up with language to bring to the city council. The city council kicked it back to us again, asking us to address both Gulf Boulevard and Laguna Boulevard, and we decided to come up with this workshop because we wanted more direction from y'all as what y'all want to see on Laguna Boulevard. Gulf Boulevard, as far as I can tell, is pretty much addressed because we do have the benefit of having the Open Beaches Act, the Texas Natural Resources Codes, and the administrative codes that go along with it that would address that. On Laguna Boulevard, that's a whole different animal. So
I don't think it was necessarily Laguna Boulevard because Laguna Boulevard really isn't scheduled to have much of any parking on it. It's really the side streets that were the concern because of from what I remember from city council meeting is that there were some concerns that if we limit here, does it push everybody to the other side? And so, I think that you've got pretty good gist on it. And I just think that we're not really talking about Laguna Boulevard, but we're just talking about if we, South Padre Island's been very reactive for a long period of time. And it's just to make sure that if we do an ordinance here, that we don't have to be reactive. We can be proactive of how we do the ordinance. And so we don't have to be reactive later to solve a problem that we created by one ordinance that shuffled down the road. And so I guess that's the big issue. Well, at least that was my issue on it. I think their council members here maybe had some other issues because we didn't get the motion I thought we would have gotten or whatever it might have been. And so, Ed, if you could kind of remind everybody of what you kind of drafted in the process when we had that city council meeting?
First of all, I drafted it at the request of the task force. I mean, it wasn't my idea, but
Right.
of course. But the simplest one is to prohibit any vehicle that doesn't fit in one spot, whether it's a trailer, RV, something attached with a boat. And then the second one included that other issue of overnight parking. So prohibits also overnight parking, which gets into a little more of a controversy maybe. So the simplest one was anything that doesn't fit in a standard spot, acknowledging that we're required to have beach access spaces according to the GLO, does not totally fit within one designated standing parking space for any period of time is prohibited on Gulf Boulevard and all designated city beach accesses. And the second draft was the same thing, except with the inclusion that overnight parking is prohibited on Gulf Boulevard in all designated city beach accesses.
Okay, and so I guess we're gonna hold on to that for 1 second. And then, and kind of what the concern was, like the curb and gutter streets are getting counted towards the beach access parking or our required beach, calculation. So I think the first thing is that we should discuss this in order so that we take one issue, then we look at another issue, and then we see if there's a third issue or a compromise or whatever it might be. And I'd appreciate everyone's input. And then after we get through the input on the first one, we'll if there's anybody in the audience who'd like to speak on or behalf of that one item. So we'll start with the first item, which is limiting each parking spot to a vehicle that fits in that designated parking spot and couldn't encroach into another parking spot.
And the issue there, which brought up by some council members, was how about the people that have boats that want to go fishing in? And that's when we had that big discussion at the last
Correct.
meeting.
So I guess if we want to start with, we'll alternate.
Are we talking about Gulf Boulevard? Can we limit it to that first?
Well, it's got to include the side streets.
Side
It's
streets.
got to include the side streets that are counted with the parking, I think. And that's kind of where we're getting into this deal. We could start talking about Gulf Boulevard. We do only have an hour, and so we need to kind of, make, if someone, so we'll start with Gulf Boulevard. We'll do that. And if you don't have anything that you want to add or whatever, feel free that you don't have to speak, but if you want to add, and we'll just alternate. We'll go Rob, myself, Abby, and then we'll just diagonal it down the table.
So,
We're talking about one parking spot per vehicle, no encroachment into other parking spots along Gulf Boulevard and let's say the beach accesses or whatever.
Yeah, because there wasn't a lot of
We
discussion.
could have someone that pulls up and takes up 5 parking spots in the beach access or something like that. I don't know what would happen in that situation.
well, yeah, I mean, depending on the boat, it can take up, 4 or 5 spots.
Or an RV or
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
might be.
So,
So we'll talk about the beach access and Gulf Boulevard. Rob, you go first.
So my response to that is that, due to decisions made by other administrations, not yours, there's a lack of parking available for a person who would like to come in and do a weekly rental or a monthly rental or whatever rental, and they can't park their boat trailer in that property, the condo, or whatever it is. But since that's happened, we now have 3 to 4 opportunities of places that have boat storage or trailer storage on the island that they do charge by the day, but they're available, and there's no reason why somebody should be taking up that spot for multiple days. And I think it's almost a slam dunk. It's like, okay, you can't park here. You gotta go find your other aspect of it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm perfectly fine with limiting vehicles to one parking spot. So that's along Gulf Boulevard and the beach accesses. But that's just my opinion.
I agree that we do need to look into addressing especially the boat trailers. I've seen jet skis dropped there on a trailer with no vehicle attached. I just think it's a misuse of existing public beach access parking spots. And as we continue to add boat ramps and encourage fishermen to come. We do want them to come. We are going to have more and more boats and trailers. And I just think we should get ahead of this and start directing them to locations that they can park their boats and trailers overnight.
But just keeping on the hand, how do you feel about limiting one parking spot to one vehicle?
I think we should be very careful because we do have smaller parking spots along Gulf Boulevard. So if you get a larger truck that doesn't fit into that small
8 by
slot,
18 spot.
I mean, and they're going over, are we going to give them, a grace? They do have one vehicle and maybe their hitch of their truck extends. I would hope that we could give them grace and look the other way. I'm more in line with large RVs and trailers and boats.
Yeah, and that's one of the concerns on the police side of things regarding the guy who has the big dually truck that's 22 feet long, you make a rule, or you would have to then maybe just go to a limitation of the maximum size of the vehicle, but you're still going to lose an extra parking spot or whatever it might be. But I do agree with that, but I'm just kind of letting you know what some concerns were on the administration side. Jerry?
I'm wondering if we're really discussing an issue or not, because I haven't seen it. What I've done almost 3 weeks is every day I've traveled Gulf Boulevard and noted what is actually being parked on Gulf Boulevard. Could I have the first slide, please? There it is, okay. So I started this on Monday, 5/16, and the first 3 days, there's nothing. On Tuesday, 5/19, there is one boat and a trailer and a utility trailer. The next day, the boat was gone. There's a jet ski. Friday, there was a utility trailer. Saturday, there was a jet ski, boat trailer, and a construction trailer, utility trailer. So I want to point out, as I put in a note at the very bottom, that utility trailer was there for several days. And one of the things I noted, it didn't have a tag. So it shouldn't have been there anyway. And the city took care of it and hauled it off. So somebody just parked an untagged, unlicensed utility trailer. So you go on Sunday, you got a boat and trailer. That same Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that same utility trailer. Then on Wednesday, there was a construction trailer. And this was loading equipment. And this was the south end, where there's a home being built. On Thursday, there's a fairly large sailboat parked there, but within a few hours, it was gone. On Friday, again, there's 2 residents. There's one of them, you have a construction trailer, and they're loading equipment, unloading. Saturday, 2 of them, because there's a condo complex in the middle of the block. Monday, construction trailer. Tuesday, 3 construction trailers. So most of what I've seen is construction trailers. So what do we tell these contractors when they're building a home on Gulf Boulevard? Because we don't want, like I said, I saw 2 boats and trailers. And this is over the Memorial Weekend, so I took in a Memorial Weekend. So it's not, I don't see there is actually a problem. Now, if you bring up, there's a picture of that utility trailer. If you go to the next picture, this is another concern I have. There, all right, I took pictures of trucks. The black one's extended. Again, I've said this before. We have limited the size or reduced the size of those parking spaces to accommodate GLO and their requirement. We have X amount of parking spaces. But go to the next slide, please. If you take a pickup, and this is just, I wouldn't call it an extended bed or anything. These pickup trucks don't fit. And if you can go to the next one, I think that's Ken Metter's truck, but that's harassment. So if we're going to prohibit, if we're going to have prohibitions, then what we need to do is just put up signs and put compact vehicle parking only.
You can't do that, Kerry.
I know, but yet we're telling big trucks they can't do that. So, but the real issue is here, over a 3-week period, I didn't see a problem. The boats and the trailers there were there for one day and they were gone.
When you were doing your simple analysis, I guess, or surveying.
Yeah, it's not scientific by any means.
Did you see any issues where there were like like a boat trailer and a vehicle taking up 1.5 or 2.5 spots, and it was leaving, basically a parking spot that was unusable?
I didn't see that.
Were you looking for that?
I pretty well have it all up here, but there
just
was
curious.
one incident where the vehicle was attached to a boat trailer, took up space, but it wasn't there long. And that was a huge ass sailboat.
I'm just asking,
Yeah.
just to see kind of what surveying was done. Do you have anything else to add?
No, ma'am.
All righty. Stormy.
I remember about a year ago, I think at the start of this, there was a boat parked on Gulf Boulevard on the south end for about 2 or 3 months. And then there was another boat parked a little bit of ways away for about a month or so. And I think the police were out there looking at it, trying to find out whose they were. And so that got me thinking. And so it's hard to regulate this, and then also at the same time hard to enforce it if you say it's just for beachgoers, because that gets splitting hairs and who's a beachgoer and who left the beach for a little bit. So I think the one vehicle per space is a good compromise, and it's something that can be enforced, and I think that's reasonable. Now, if we give exception because somebody has some monster truck, I think we got to cut it off somewhere. We can't keep giving in to, my truck is 22 and the trailer, the hitches are another 2.5 feet, so I'm going to take up a space and a half. Well, really, that's 2 spaces because you're rendering one. Even if you're sticking out a foot into the other space, it ruins the whole system. So you got to cut it off somewhere. You can't keep giving exceptions. On my boat, I'm just here for an hour and a half, or I'm just here for a little bit. Those are exceptions I think we can't work with, and they can't be enforced. I agree that one vehicle per space, a driving vehicle, not a trailer, not a boat, not a jet skis. I think it's got to be a vehicle that people ride in to come to the beach, to walk across the street or walk into the beach access and go to our beach. Thank you.
Ken?
The last meeting we discussed this, I brought up the point of it's a regular wheelbase pickup. You got an 18.5-foot shallow sport. They'll fit in 2 spaces. So you got one vehicle in one space, one vehicle in the other space. Carol Bolstead brought up, and we're going to go to her into the island because I've got a doctor friend that lives up there. He doesn't own a boat. He don't want the hassle, but he's got a friend that has one. Comes in on Friday night, spends the night. They get up the next morning, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and they're gone. Do we discourage that? Do we want that person to come in? I mean, I'm throwing the question out.
Michael?
I think we should err on being abrasive to these visitors that we want. We want the boat owners, we want the jet ski owners. And if, a jet ski trailer is one vehicle, and then the pickup is the one vehicle, I think, one space, one vehicle is appropriate. As long as, the GLO has its rules, and we have to abide by those. Right, Christina? We don't want to get in trouble with them.
No, we definitely don't want to do that.
From what I understand, we had 6 boat calls this year. So that it doesn't seem like that's that huge of a deal. Yeah, I was talking to Claudine about it.
like trailers parked and
Yeah.
being there for extended periods of time.
How many didn't get called in? That's
Well,
also
just,
part of
that's
the equation.
the figure I got.
Yeah, that means
Yeah.
the calls are one thing, but what about the ones that weren't called in? Probably twice as many, 3 times as
But-
many.
Well, one space, one vehicle.
All right, Joe?
I'm not supportive of this at this time. I'm kind of going with Carrie. We've got, I think, 17 fishing tournaments coming up the next 3 months. The CVB spending $2.1 million in change, advertising and marketing. Eco is our, who we're marketing to. That's fishing. That's water. I know a couple meetings ago, we went to staff and asked them to look at improving 15 or 18 streets this year. I think this is a conversation after we get some more streets improved and have some more parking spots provided. But I'm not ready to support this at this time. I just don't think I don't think we're there right now. But we get those streets improved, get Laguna finished. We need to go slow and look at the unintended consequences that'll come with this. So that's my feelings right now.
Todd?
I don't really have a hard opinion, but I was looking at the city ordinances and in the section where about charging the parking fees. I don't even know if that's done, but there is already didn't bring my reading glasses, but it says vehicles are limited to remaining in one parking space for maximum 24-hour period. So that's for Gulf Boulevard from March 15th to September 1. So why don't we already enforce that?
Okay. Lydia?
I'm in support of having one space for one vehicle, but I think I'd like to see maybe have something that would direct people to the side street and inviting them to, you're welcome to park your trailer and vehicle on the side street. Some kind of sign or signage like that. And I think that, I know it's impossible for the police department to do something, but I think we could also, if we ticket someone or, maybe just send out a warning and explain that, this is how it's got to be. But I think if we put signage up stating that the larger ones or the double, whatever they're carrying, could be invited to park on the side streets. And that would be a little friendlier way of
Carol?
Can you guys hear me? I talk pretty loud most of the time anyways.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of neutral on this in general. I totally agree that these people who are coming in with their trailers are spending a lot of money, and most of them are having expensive homes right on Gulf, and they need a place. We've got all these fishing tournaments, and we need to support that. At the same time, I haven't seen a lot of problems with it either, as far as a lot of them being there for long term. But the spaces are designed relatively for beachgoers, and if there was a problem and it was limiting it, then there should be something, and I think you've already figured out that there is, if somebody sees something for 3 days, it could get called in and be addressed at that point. What we have is a limited amount of parking spaces, and one of the things I noticed is that we've got a lot of bicycles, and I went out on Saturday, in the middle of that crowd, I didn't see a single bicycle in any of those bike spaces. Yeah, they're small, but so are smart cars, and so are Chevy Sparks and a lot of other vehicles.
And those golf carts.
Golf carts could fit there. Move the bicycle parking to give us a few more spaces.
There's a reason they did that, is a safety reason, because when you're coming off a side street on the Gulf and you have a vehicle parked that close, you could not see somebody coming from the opposite. That's the reason they did that. Originally, there were parking places, but it was creating problems with traffic because you could not, your visibility was gone. So you had to pull out into the lane before you could see. So to solve that, they put the bike racks in there.
So there may be some adjustment there then to give the pickup trucks a little more room, because that space was not used in any way, just sitting there. I also noticed there's some side streets that have lots on them, and they're completely undeveloped, and then the ones that are developed were like parking, 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 and there was no reason why somebody wasn't one block over parking, other than the fact that it wasn't really signed out or designated. And a quickie for the summer might be just stick some of the parking blocks or something like that, that even though we're not gonna gravel it or whatever, so people know they could use that area. There's some area there we're not using, and people could use it, but it's just not obvious that they could. So, as far as, I don't think there's a problem overall, as far as, letting somebody park there.
Well, based on time, the first thing that I'll note from this is that it seems like both boards are not fully in agreement one way or the other with regards to limiting it to one vehicle per one parking space. The next thing I do want to bring up, Todd, I think you're talking about the ordinance is the paid parking ordinance that we've never put into effect, but we do have it in writing, because there was a talk 10, 15 years ago about doing paid parking, but that's, so they created this ordinance with the idea that they were ever going to designate some area where they could pay to park, which would be which originally was the idea of along Gulf Boulevard and the beach accesses. But there is part of that ordinance too, which is the March 15th and to September 15th, which is the vehicle passes that we do have on the side streets that don't have curb and gutter. So we're going to look into that, or Ed's going to look into that just to kind of see where that is. But that was the next question on the list, which was, do we look at putting a time limit in on the parking along Gulf Boulevard and the beach accesses? The beach accesses, I believe, already have no overnight parking.
Right.
Is that correct? Yes, and that's kind of to protect those accesses or whatever that are next door to condos where they have overflow parking and all that fun stuff, and that was done a few years ago. But do we want to look at limitations of parking time limits along Gulf Boulevard? Maybe not. We could talk about overnight, or we could just talk about a max 24 hours.
How would that be enforced?
I think that you could have a police vehicle that drives down Gulf at 7 in the morning and 7 at night, and if they're recognizing any vehicles that are there, they put it on a list to check it out again at 7 in the morning or 7 at night, and wherever that clock goes. I don't know if that's feasible. I do have the police chief here. But before we even get into the feasibility of that, is that even something that we want to discuss? Okay. Rob says no.
Well, I stayed quiet the whole time. We're having a discussion, so can I rebut some stuff here real quick?
Sure, we'll
Okay.
stop and we'll move to that.
All right. So as far as construction trailers go, I understand that you have to have construction trailers out there on a daily basis. There's no reason why a construction trailer has to be on a public beach parking spot when you have your own driveway there. You can have that trailer parked in your spot.
I'll tell you where the two places are, and there is no parking because
They don't have a driveway in there?
No, there's not poured, nothing's done.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they're working
Okay, a
on
new
it.
home, I understand that.
New home.
Okay.
And then the other one's in the middle of the block where it's condos.
Right.
And they have no place to put a utility
They have
trailer
a
for their tools and all
condominium
that.
parking lot.
They can't, have you seen the size? Well, you don't know where it is. The pull out, and then you have the residents parking there. They have to get in and out. You can't park.
That's
there.
not our problem though, Kerry. It's a private, it's
It's a public,
it's a
it's
condominium.
public parking. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it is our problem. We put tiny parking places. Again, we have to address that.
No, we
One spot, one
we did not do
vehicle,
that.
so
Someone
no-
else did that, but yes,
Yeah.
the parking spots are too small. We can't address that. We're not going to redesign all of Gulf Boulevard again.
and
We went through that
creates a
15 years ago.
problem. One parking per vehicle. So you're going to eliminate trucks. You're going to write tickets to trucks because they're taking up more than one spot?
No, this started out as trailers. That's it, dude. That's all I wanted to do. I mean, that was all we were looking out to do. I mean, I understand that they're small. My truck barely fits in one of those spots too. All right, okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Okay,
Bob.
sorry, that's all right. Whatever. I don't want to do paid parking. I don't want to do time parking either.
No, I don't, I wasn't
Okay.
saying we were even discussing paid parking. I was just mentioning that might have been where it came out of the ordinance. That's not gonna be the discussion today at all. But you're not in favor of time parking. Anybody else?
I just don't see how we can even do that, other than you have an officer, and this is the whole problem with the whole paid parking too, is you have to have a whole infrastructure to go and chalk tires or something like that to make sure that they haven't moved. I mean, that's, the intent was never to add an extra, extreme burden on the police department or code enforcement or anyone else who was going to be in charge of doing that. It was an obvious thing, so, whatever. Okay.
I'll say I play my role kind of as devil's advocate, trying to figure out what people want to do. So, anybody have any discussion that they want to have on overnight parking or time limits?
If we allow them to be overnight or 24 hours, that's different than the beach access.
Wait, we're separating the beach access. We're just talking about Gulf Boulevard because that's already in effect at the beach accesses, with the exception of 4 or 5 beach accesses.
Overnight, 24 hours, that defines them as not being a daily beachgoer. They're a resident, a visitor who's staying close by, and they're using that for their 4 or 5 day stay or whatever. They're not a daily beachgoer. So that's a good way to tell that they're abusing what those spaces are meant for.
See, I could argue that because they are, if they're staying at a condo park out there and they're going to the beach every day.
You could also argue that a private driveway is a public beach parking spot too, because that person goes to the beach probably twice, 2-3 times a week. So, I mean, that's.
Well, the other thing that bothers me a lot is years ago, well, not that many years ago, we reduced the required parking for condominiums that would be built from 2 to 1, which we knew would impact our infrastructure and parking requirements and all that, because these condos sometimes have put 3 families in them and they got 5 vehicles. I mean, part of this we created.
I said that at the beginning. You're correct.
Not us, that's
Yes,
before our time.
The city
Thank
did
God.
create that problem.
Well, that is us.
Yes.
It's just it's a historical problem.
Right.
Does anybody else have any conversations? I'll get to the public after kind of seeing if anybody else has any desire to have this discussion or not. Do what?
I have something I want to say, so we can know that, I just want to make sure that I meant to mention this before, and I was just double checking to make sure. So a couple of years ago, chalking the tires is ruled unconstitutional. Police can't do that anymore. It's a violation. So just so you know, when you're thinking of the enforcement reasons and the methods, just keep in mind how we're going to do it, because that we can't do.
Okay. Does anybody else on this, sitting at this square rectangular table, have any passion of talking about
We should have a round.
putting some sort of time limit along Gulf Boulevard parking?
Your list, were there commercial vehicles or were they mixed? Were you saying commercial trailers or?
Just a tray, it's a flatbeds where they bring in equipment, load equipment, haul junk off and all that. That's it. Other than, those are construction trailers. Other than the utility trailer that was there for days, that matter was taken care of. It was gone. That was that small box.
Carrie, was that over on Mesquite and Gulf?
That was on Mars, near Mars.
Okay, because there was one for a couple of days, I think Randy and I talked about that on Mesquite, and then all of a sudden, after about 4 days, I was patiently waiting, I said, okay, I'll give it 3 days, and then on the 4th day, it disappeared from there and showed up in the house across the street in the driveway.
That's the same one, the white one? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, the white one.
Uh-huh.
And so I guess they've been parking in different places. And as I was coming, I don't know, I guess it's a vacation rental, something or another. It's just been sold to a private person that's renting it out. And as I was pulling out, I'm assuming the owner, not the vacation rental people, was out there arguing with someone else, telling him to get his damn trailer off of his property. But it's the same one that's been roaming around. So that's a little concerning. As far as the 24 hours, I think that, I don't have any kind of a one way or another. I guess maybe I'll lean a little more to 24 hours just because we need to keep those moving along. But I'm not real married to that.
All right.
Does
I think-
anybody know off the top of the head, how many parking spaces are along Gulf Boulevard? Christina, you remember?
About 352.
Just around about like 300, 360. So we got 300,
Let's check it real quick, but that's.
well, it's in the hundreds.
310.
310.
And then 788,
Okay.
317.
So here, and again, I go back to my opening statement, I don't even see this yet as a problem, because in this time, if you take out the utility trailers, it's been a boat and a jet ski, 2 boats and a jet ski for 3 of the days of almost 3 weeks. So I just think we're making much ado about nothing.
Yeah, the other thing that I would maybe suggest, since we do have so many fishing tournaments, is that when they receive their packet, when they buy in to getting in the tournament, is we give them a little paper to hang on their, on their visor, just identifying that they're here for a tourney, and then maybe in the printed packet that we give them, just tell them that we're inviting them, they're welcome to park on the side streets. Just a little something. I just don't feel like it's really a big problem.
I will concede, maybe it's not a big problem. But I will say this, okay, I have no problem with boaters, fishermen. I want them to come here. We've been working for a long time on more access on the Bayside. There is also, you can't make exemptions for people that come here and saying, oh, I'm in a fishing tournament, therefore I get the special tag that I can park anywhere I want to on the island.
On the side street.
Okay, but still,
Yeah, well, we don't
Can't do that.
control the fishing tournament.
Yeah,
so we-
Yeah,
but-
no,
we don't really
but
have
that-
much
but-
of a deal with that.
No, I understand
Yeah.
that. I'm
So,
just saying. that that would be a
does
way to
anybody
do it.
else from the board have anything to add real quick? And then we'll let a couple people from the audience speak if they wish to speak. And
Put some effort towards finding some funds to find some more land.
Thank you very much.
For trailer parking on the basin. We should make that a priority this year.
That's right.
Making more land.
And especially
Totally
with
agree
the-
with that.
There's some good ones available.
I second
How
that.
about the convention center parking, the southmost with borders, the boulevard?
I think we already kind of include that somewhat in our beach access parking. And I think that,
Post office.
and we got the post office counted and, whatever it might be. And as expansion heads up north or whatever it might be, that burden's gonna get to be higher and higher. Let's let a couple of people from the audience, if they want to speak.
Anybody?
The mic set up over here to the podium. Let's do the podium there. And
Hi, my name's Erica Lerma. I'm in agreement that there's not really an issue. I go to the beach every day. In fact, you guys are cutting into my beach time right now. And I think there is a parking problem, but maybe there's a few boats every now and then that I see, but I don't see a whole lot of boats there parked. And, the people that do have boats, they pay for registration for their trailer, they pay registration for their boat, they pay taxes, they pay all kinds of stuff. So they should be able to park in free city parking. And if you're not gonna have, if that's just beach parking and not city parking, you guys really haven't, separated that out. So if you're gonna take that away from everybody parking there publicly, then where, are you giving them another place to park, or you're just going to take away all the parking on the island? And that makes me wonder, maybe what kind of motive do you have into doing this? Do you guys have friends with those lots that have the boat parking that you're going to start charging, or maybe the towing companies? I don't know. How much is it? How much do they pay? How much do they charge to tow a boat and a trailer? Because if you guys are going to start towing people's boats and trailers, they're not going to be very happy about that. So I haven't seen a lot of members of the public here complaining about the boats and trailers either. It just seems to be kind of an internal thing. So I'm just speaking on behalf of everyone that I've spoken to in the public that it's not really that big of a deal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Diane Nelson, and I guess I came here because I do have a van that's 22 feet long, but we don't keep it on the street. But every once in a while, I live on Gulf Boulevard. We go on a trip. I want to bring it home, get it ready for our trip, and it does sit across the street sometimes for 2 days, 3 days. We're unloading stuff, then we haul it where we keep it. But it's no longer than the trucks that squeeze in those spots. And they do, they're tight, they have to go over the grass to get into those spots, even if there's a little car there. And so I guess that was my concern, that living there, I thought it was public parking, and I should be able to utilize it when I need it also, which isn't very often. But I'd hate to see that option taken away from me when I live right across the street. And I was just worried about the problem being taken away, that I couldn't park there. So, and I don't see the boat parking problem myself, living on that and seeing what's parked there. So I guess that's all I had to add. In overnight parking, I don't really see a lot of people parking overnight. On weekends, I see kids maybe staying overnight, sleeping in their cars, but they're usually gone when the sun comes up because it gets awfully hot in the cars. But anyway, that's all I had to add.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As a tourist that enjoys South Padre, I want to thank you all for what you're doing to make this a place that tourists want to come. And the parking is enjoyable, but if there could be more of it, I think it would facilitate your goals of having this as a tourist destination.
Would you mind stating your name? Oh, sorry.
Stacy Reynolds.
I wanted to bring up one more thing, especially like with these trucks and the trailer, so are y'all gonna be giving tickets if they're barely over the line like this one white truck?
Well, I don't think there's an ordinance or any discussion at this point about, that's what we're trying to decide, is when we're looking at all of these variables and all of these issues that we're seeing, and we're trying to have a round table or rectangular table discussion to figure out if we could come up with a happy median or a solution or whatever it might be. But right now, there's nothing out there to be ticketing anybody for being parked over the line or not over the line.
Yeah, I don't think that would be very, I don't know, I would be really upset if I got a ticket for that, and I think it would be really hard to enforce that uniformly, and then we would have issues with, I remember in this last meeting, you guys were like, well, it's kind of complaint-based. Well, then you're dealing with selective enforcement, and then when you're getting into 14th Amendment issues, because why does the law only apply to some people and not others, So you got to think about that too.
The original intent of this was to deal with trailer parking and public beach access parking spots, not to start towing trucks or cars or anything like that.
You would have to have if you were going to start trying to enforce something like that, you would have to have really clear signage at every block, which would look really ugly in my opinion. And I just don't agree with it. I think there's more creative ways to solve the parking issue. We've been able to find money to pay for all kinds of stuff. I think by now we should have, tried to acquire land, like you guys said, and made more beach parking somewhere.
Thank you. All right. So we've had a lot of discussion, and I appreciate everybody who has participated in this. Does anybody have any additional ideas, or where we've played devil's advocate or whatever it might be, to try to, I don't know. I mean, obviously there's a division between whether or not it's a problem or not a problem. I do understand why it was brought up, was to look forward to the future and all this other stuff. I also do understand Councilman Rico's point that, let's see what happens after, some improvements are done, et cetera. So I'm neutral on it, but anybody else?
I'm
I would-
feeling like it's,
Well, I
again,
get- I get
I'm
it.
sorry, we're gonna do
It's
that.
okay, Gary. It's all right.
Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, so obviously, nothing's gonna get done this year anyway. So I think if we take this season that's upon us, we just started it last week, and we see what happens and see if there is an actual issue. If not, maybe it was an anomaly, that I noticed or something like that. But we're not gonna be able to put up signs, we're not gonna be able to change any ordinances and have any kind of effect on this season. So I would imagine that it'd be a better thing to observe this season and see what goes on, and we'll start it up again at the end of the season. And if there's an issue that we need to address, then we need to address it then, and if not, then no. So that's my suggestion.
Okay.
Your turn.
That was yours. You were starting to speak.
Yeah, I still say that I don't see it as a problem. It is public parking. I don't want to aggravate tourists that come here, spend a lot of money. I think there is an issue, one spot, one vehicle with oversized. I don't call them oversized, everybody drives larger vehicles, a lot of them. So I don't think this needs to be addressed at this point. It's good to have a dialogue and get everybody's feedback, so, but.
That's what this workshop's for, so that we
Absolutely.
can
Now,
discuss this issue amongst the two boards.
See how we
and see
feel,
what-
and I appreciate that, so.
But let's just keep in mind, it's what the GLO defines as a qualified daily beach goer. It's up to the GLO. That's why we're really protecting.
But we haven't had a letter from the GLO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as you know, the parking spaces, it's a trade-off. Close the beach, we have parking spaces available for daily beach goers. It's very defined about what those spaces are for. So the wording is clear. So, I don't want the GLO paying us a visit, calling you and.
Well, they were here just a couple days, last week.
Yeah, they were here last week, but
Sadly, for a sign showing ribbon cutting, whatever it was.
as of right now, we are in compliance with GLO. My concern was that if we have multiple days of people, the same person taking the same spot, that we would be abusing that privilege. We're gonna have, I still stand by it. Let's take the season and see if that's a problem or not.
Well, I like Rob's idea of that, that obviously we're where we are at this point in time. We don't have enough data. We don't have enough true impact or whatever. And so that we can, I encourage you Shoreline members, since this is pretty much your area of expertise today in the beach, that while you're here this summer is that you all take the effort to analyze Gulf Boulevard and on your time and whenever you're joyriding around or whatever it might be, and look to see if y'all can come up with, if there is an issue and truly identify it, and we're more than willing to, I'm at least more willing to help work out whatever issues we can solve. But that's kind of my opinion. Does anybody else at the board have anything else to say or at the table?
I'd suggest that we try to develop those lots, the parking along those empty lots that are closest to Gulf. And there's a half a dozen of them there, and they're right on Gulf, and try to develop those on the side street. Just, you're gonna get 6 spots, that's it, but do it, it's.
We're
Those are
going
the,
to try to figure out land acquisition and everything else and all that fun stuff and the funds.
Not
That's
the
big
lot
part.
itself, right next to the street, right? Develop it so that it's more apparent that somebody can park there.
I
'Cause it's
think-
not real obvious.
I think we can all agree that what we need is parking as a whole, and I think Joe was right on the money there. We need more free public parking, whether it's beachgoers or boaters. We need more.
We just got to figure out how to find the money to acquire and to pay for that parking. And that's the-
years.
Yeah. It would have been a lot easier 30 years ago to do it and buy those lots at $2,500 a pop, but, now they're 200. So,
200.
anyway, but if there isn't anybody else who has anything to say it now, or we will.
Say thank you to the city council for showing up for this meeting today and indulging us.
Does the police chief have anything? Claudine, do you have anything to
No.
leave me out of it?
All right, well, hearing that there's really, we appreciate everybody's time and we appreciate input and the discussion. And let's see if we need to revisit it come October, November of next year, of this year. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. You know, Carrie's got a little land next to his